Hi there, it's Nicole here today, and I have shared quite a few cards recently that are all die cutting with mostly no stamping, maybe just a sentiment here and there. Today I thought I'd kind of switch it up and share a couple of cards that are completely stamped and there is absolutely no die cutting at all. No die cutting machine is needed to create these. I am using two adorable new stamp sets from Flora and Fauna, and they are just adorable, so fun to create. The first card I'm going to share with you was created entirely with the Love Bug stamp set. And to do this, we're going to start by stamping the images, masking them, and then stenciling a background to kind of build up that scene. And from there, we'll add some other things on top and of course some great coloring. So what I like to do is lay out my stamps first. And I find this really kind of helps tell me what needs to be in the foreground of the scene. In this case, it's the two little critters that are going to be hanging out or in that front seat of this little VW bug. And for that, I just laid them out. I'm using the stamp platform. I picked them up. And of course, at that point, I still had the car there. So I went ahead and just took that off and then stamped the little raccoon and the owl right there on my background paper. I stamped them again and on masking paper, cut those out, and then placed the mask over the stamped images. Next, we're going to take the car. And there are three different car options or vehicle options in this, which I think are so super cute. I chose this one for my card today, and at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the greeting that goes underneath. And I picked the Sending Good Vibes. I thought these little guys hanging out of their little car, just the happiness of this scene, I thought the Sending Good Vibes really worked. Again, we need a mask, so I am simply just trimming this out. I've already stamped it there. I want to snip out the windshield and go ahead and cut that part out as well. Remove my backing paper and then pop this in place. The masking, it seems maybe a little intimidating when you first start. I was always so intimidated by it. But masking is really become one of my favorite things for creating amazing scenes where you don't have tons of layers. The layers are always fun, but at times I really find it is very rewarding to create a card that doesn't require all of that, especially with all the amazing background stamps, stencils, and other coloring techniques out there. You can really create a one-layer card that is just phenomenal. So that I decided to put the stack of suitcases on the top of my card. There's also a stack of presents that I think would be darling if you wanted to do more of a birthday themed card. And then I'm going to start inking up my background. Taking some Hickory Smoke Distress ink and at the flat edge of the Mountain Outdoor Scene Builder stencil set from Honeybee Stamps. I'm using this flat edge because I just need something to ground the scene, to ground the car. And I only want to apply the ink near the near that edge. I don't really want to go all the way down. We just want a hint of color. I don't really want my background to be overwhelming. I also decided to do something a little non-traditional, and I am using some pink colors for my mountains and sky. I'm using that mountain edge now with Spun Sugar Distress ink, and it's really, really light. I don't mind how it turned out, but I think if I had to go back, I think I might have flip-flopped the colors I used for the mountains and the sky, or the clouds. The clouds I'm using Picked Raspberry. I think I would have flip-flopped the two just to make those mountains a little bit more prominent. But really, the star of the show is this darling little scene going on. Next, I'm going to grab my stamp platform again and take the Sunshine from the Love Bug set and stamp that with Fossilized Amber Distress Oxide ink right on the background. And I'm going to do that twice, one on top of another. And then I'm just taking the little teeny tiny heart from the stamp set and some Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to stamp some hearts all over the background. This is not necessarily a Valentine's-y type love card, but I think this would definitely work for the right person. Maybe you don't want to send that lovey-dovey kind of a greeting card. I think this would be really fun. I think it's just a really cute card that would work for many different occasions. Next, I did stamp everything on Bristol Smooth cardstock. That's part of the reason the Distress inks blended or went on so smoothly when I was applying them there with the stencils. And I did this for two reasons. Number one, so that my Distress inks went on so nice and there weren't any blotchy areas. And number two, so that I could color in all of these cute images with Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. If you've seen any of my videos where I use Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, you will know that I am a huge fan of using the Bristol Smooth cardstock for coloring with these markers. There's just nothing else like it. They go on so smooth, they blend beautifully, whether you want to use water or not. Oftentimes, I do not use water unless I am maybe doing an embossed image that a lot of florals and things I will do that with, and then I use the water. Otherwise, I like to color with them just flat out. And what I like to do is lay down my dark color first and blend out with my lighter color. And you get these amazing results. Very, very fast coloring here. I went ahead and colored the little VW Bug pink. I really loved the pink of the mountains and the clouds and thought pink would be a cute color for the car, a little yellow for the headlights, a little very light gray for the bumper, and then a little darker gray for the tires. And then the suitcases stacked on top are all going to be in shades of red, pink, or gray. I tried to keep my color palette very, very minimal, just to keep the focus and kind of make everything coordinate and match really nice. The colors I'm using are all shown on the screen, so if at any time you're wondering exactly which colors I'm using, you can use that for reference. I will also be listing them below in the supplies. Now, once I have everything colored here, I'm ready to add some finishing details. You could definitely be finished at this point if you wanted to. I almost was. I went ahead and put the Nouveau Crystal Glaze on the headlights and then the bumper of the car. And then I decided, oh, I want to go in with a white pen and add some highlight areas, maybe some little dot detail, other little things here and there. And I ended up adding a whole bunch of little dots. And I think it doesn't show on the screen so well, but in real life it adds a really fun touch and a nice finishing element to the design. Add some of that detail to the clasps and things on the suitcases. Now I'm going to take a black pen and add detail to the eyes and any dark areas on these little critters, like the beak of the owl, and also the top of the owl's head, but very, very careful. I also colored in the mask on the raccoon, and once it's completely dry, I'll go back with my white pen to color those eyes back in. I adhered the whole panel with foam adhesive to a white top fold card base, and then I'm going to finish the design with Nouveau Crystal Glaze over all of the little hearts, over the sun. We've already added it to the headlights and the bumper, but just a few little places like that, it adds a nice glossy, shiny, raised finish when it's completely dry and doesn't really take away from the single layer factor. So even though this is not really completely a single layer card, it very much is almost a single layer card. So that finishes up my first card. And I wanted to share another example, and this time we're going to use the Mermaid Love stamp set. And this has a little bit of masking, but instead of doing any stenciling, we're going to do a little watercoloring in the background instead. Still with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers, but I'm going to share how to watercolor some of the images that we're going to stamp to complete this scene. So I started out with my greeting, the little hearts, the mermaid, a jellyfish, and the seashell. Next, I'm going to clean up that jellyfish and stamp it repeatedly a few times. I've also created a mask for the seashell and the mermaid. I did that off camera to save a little time. And I'm stamping the little waves image from the Mermaid Love stamp set with Salty Ocean Distress ink. It does not have to be perfect. It's going to be watercolored and blended out, and it'll be really, really pretty, and you'll still get the effect. It gives the illusion of water and underwater, but it really softens the whole look. I think when it's initially stamped like this, it's really harsh. And if I had maybe masked off all the images and taken some distress ink maybe and blended over the whole background with blue ink, it would have been fine. But this is just a really quick and easy way. I don't have to worry about masking every little part of this scene. I didn't really want to cut masks for absolutely everything. So this is just a very quick and easy way to achieve that. Now I want to go ahead and do my initial watercoloring and do the background. This is another example of building the scene, this time kind of from the background up. So blending out with a water brush pen, there is water in this fine tip pen. What is amazing about this is that little bit of ink from the stamped image is going to blend out, and you're going to be able to color in the entire background with this really beautiful soft blue and have these awesome little waves everywhere. But it just has this beautiful finished look. And it's really going to fill in the scene and make it look very, very complete and make this underwater little scene of this mermaid floating down here so, so cute. You're going to want to make sure that each addition of ink and watercoloring is completely dry before you move on. So once I have all of this blended out, once I have inked up everything, and I can go ahead and remove my mask. I was not terribly careful with my mask as far as cutting it out exactly, because I knew I only needed it for a couple of areas where I didn't want the water to overlap the mermaid. I'm going to remove that so I can get a little closer to the black stamped line when I'm watercoloring. You might notice that the bottom of this card or the scene is a little bit bare, and that's because we're going to be adding a lot of detail with solid stamped images that are going to be stamped on top of this. Well, some will be back behind the seashell. I've not removed that mask yet. And some will be on top of it so that it appears that there is this seaweed and coral and things, some behind, some in front. And that's really going to fill in the bottom area of this scene. If you do need a little bit more ink, maybe you can't pull any more out of those waves, I like to just press my distress ink on an acrylic block, kind of put a little water out there and pick it up and watercolor with it that way. It's very quick and very easy. You don't have to be perfect at this at all. I call it kind of messy watercoloring. Once I have all of the waves done, I'm going to go ahead and speed dry my background using a heat tool. I want to clean off my acrylic block too. You can see my paper is curling up a little bit. Because it's wet, I want to dry all of that ink, and I like to dry the front, dry the back, dry the front again. Want to get this nice and dry so that I can stamp the really cute little seaweed and coral images here. And we want to start with the images that are going to be on the background or back behind. Again, I am going to use the stamp platform. You probably wouldn't have to, but just in case something doesn't stamp all the way and I may have to stamp it again, I like to use a MISTI or a stamping platform just to make sure so I can stamp it one on top of another. Now the great thing, if it doesn't stamp perfect, I almost don't need it to stamp perfect because I want to take some watercolor and just with that paintbrush there, blend out the ink. It's going to give it a much more beautiful look. Looks like it has a lot more coverage than it actually does. I'm going to do that for those two images in the back. Everything else I think is going to be on the front. So I can go ahead and peel off because I want some of the images to be back behind and some to be in the front. And it's okay that I have not colored in the seashell yet. I could have colored it in first and then gone ahead and stamped over, but it does not matter. Because the zig markers react with water, it's just kind of a tricky thing. You don't want to overlap too much, and you'll see that when I color in the seashell because you'll pick up some of that color and it'll blend into the zig markers. A way to get around that I kind of wish I would have thought of while I was doing this is if you use a pigment ink instead of just the regular distress ink, and that could be any pigment ink or the distress oxide inks because they have pigment in them. You can stamp them, emboss them with clear embossing powder, which will retain the color of the ink, and then that embossed area is going to resist anything you put on top of it. So that might be a great way too if you don't want your inks to maybe mix and mingle. That would definitely be a little solution. I'm going to add just a couple more images over here on the left, and then we'll start coloring in this cute little underwater scene. Just blend out again any of these areas. I love all of these little pieces because I think they really kind of complete the scene and finish it off super nice. I did not worry about being perfect with my coloring. Watercolor is one of those things that really works well when it's not perfect, which is great if you want to be kind of messy. So first up is these adorable little jellyfish. I'm going to color in with shades of pink. I like peach pink and sugared almond pink. These are the two colors I'm using. Laying down peach pink first, blending with the sugared almond pink. And again, I kept to a lot of pinks and purples for my card here. I did flip my card upside down. You might be wondering why I did that. Some of the ink on the bottom edge where I watercolored was still a little wet. So I thought if I flipped it upside down, I had less of a chance of getting my hand in that and dragging it across the scene and maybe messing up my card. The hearts coming up from the mermaid and the one in her hair, I colored with some red. This is the carmine red. Now here is the seashell. This was a little tricky to color just because I tried really hard to keep the greenery, but I'm coloring with some purple, light violet, and then some sugared almond pink. Now this is where you don't want to go completely over those leaves. I'm trying to just go around them. The red coral that's overlapping, I did not worry about it. I went ahead and colored over it. The purple is going to blend okay with the red. You're still going to be able to see some of it. It's not going to take away too much, but I didn't really want to mix the green and the purple, so I colored around it rather than coloring over it. The little cushion, I imagined this as her little house or her little bed, so I made it pink and purple just for fun. I colored in that with some pink, and then I'm going to add detail to the seashell with a white pen by adding some little dots. I like to do this with a white jelly roll pen. I've also done something similar with the Nuvo crystal drops in Simply White. You have to be pretty careful to get some really teeny tiny drops, but it is another great way to add some little dotted detail. It would definitely be a little bit more prominent, but it does tend to pick up the color underneath it if you've colored with a water-based marker. You'll see that when I add some little white water bubbles later on. I place one right over the top of this and it does pick up the color of the purple underneath. It didn't really bother me, so I didn't change it, but you could even color over that with a white Jelly Roll pen later if you want it to be bright white. For the face, I'm using beige and flesh color. And then for her fish tail, I decided to do a combination because her fish tail's kind of made up of hearts. I thought it would be fun to do these in pink, purple, and red and just kind of alternate the colors. And it makes it a multicolored fish tail. Really, really fun. So cute. She's just a darling little mermaid. I love how whimsical and fun these images are. So I'm just going to keep alternating all throughout her fishtail until I get to the end. The fins, I'm going to go ahead and do in purple again, and then add some detail with my white pen. Almost everything is colored. Once she is all finished, we just need to finish her hair. There's just a couple more things, and then we're going to do the finishing details on the card, which is adding some additional stamped hearts, and then any of the Nuvo crystal drops, anything with the Stardust glitter pen or the white Jelly Roll pen, any of those little things. You just want to make sure her fish tail is completely colored. And her hair is a combination of brown and beige. I just laid down the dark color first and then blended it out with the lighter brown, or the beige color, which the beige color was the darkest color I used for her skin tone. Once she is all colored, we're going to go ahead and grab the Candied Apple Distress Oxide ink. And this is because that Distress Oxide ink has the pigment ink like I was talking about earlier. And that works really good for solid images. I use the Distress inks for the seaweed and things because they really blend out perfectly with a little bit of water, and I really think the Distress Oxides do too. In fact, I'm going to try that out. I just wasn't sure, so I went ahead and used the Distress Oxide, stamped those all over, added all my white Nuvo crystal drops. I'm going to finish with a layer of Nuvo crystal glaze on the mermaid tail, the hearts, little hearts here and there, just kind of finish it all off. Thanks for joining me today for these cards featuring all stamping and no die cutting. The supplies I used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos that you might be interested in. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.